New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge, on the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Hello and welcome to Growing Edge Live. I'm Allie Benjamin, and it is my great joy to be here every week having beautiful, wonderful conversations with soul-centered individuals that are channeling their time, their energy, their resources, their creativity, their joy into doing good work in the world and creating a more loving, peaceful, abundant world for us to live in. So today I have another amazing guest, Diana Soroka, and you'll get to meet her in just a minute. But I want to say hello to you wherever you are. I hope that you're having a beautiful, well, for me it's the morning, and maybe you're watching this as a replay. And if you're here for the first time, I'm really glad that you found us and that you're watching. And if you're back and you've been one of our regulars, I'm so glad that you're back. And I know that today's conversation will inspire something within you, because here at Growing Edge, we're sponsored by Satya, and the Satya Center is all about inspiring minds, healing hearts, transforming lives, and evolving consciousness. And so I know, because Diana is a very, very, very dear friend of mine, that she is going to do all of those things, inspire you, help your heart heal, and to expand consciousness and transform your life. So without further ado, here is a little about Diana. Diana is the founder of Wild Hearts, there she is, and a lifelong seeker of personal growth, blending her love for teaching, spiritual exploration, and the transformative power of the Enneagram. We have that in common. With over 30 years of experience as an educator and leader, Diana now guides individuals and entrepreneurs towards self-discovery, authenticity, and growth. Grounded in her deep belief that love is all there is, she inspires others to embrace life's adventures, both big and small, with creativity, purpose, and a touch of the spiritual. Through Wild Hearts, she nurtures connection, meaning, and the freedom to grow into one's true self. Welcome, Diana.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Oh, you're so welcome. We've been friends for a year and a half, 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And we met in a course that we participated in together, which was an Enneagram masterclass training and certification program. And so we have that in common. And we're also now working together, which I'm so, so excited about. And I've thought about having you come on, and this seems like the perfect time, because I know that you're really expanding into what you're doing. And really, I know that you write a lot, and you've been so prolific with your writing. And so I've really got a sense that this is the perfect time to bring you on to share some of the things you're up to and we're up to. And so where are you? Where are you at the moment?
I am in a very small little town called LaConner, Washington, and I've just been in Washington for 2 years now. Um, I've lived all my life in Arizona, so it's a big move, in my later years to a beautiful, beautiful place, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, there's a big contrast between the desert and living on the ocean. Is it the ocean, or is it an inlet, or what do you actually call the water
It,
around you?
well, it is the ocean, but it is an inlet of the ocean. So we're in the Sound, the Puget Sound, and we're even in a little bit further. LaConner's in probably maybe 4 or 5 miles, but we're on the water, and it's an amazing experience for me.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the big things that you experienced in moving from the desert to the ocean to being around all the water? Was it more of a physical feeling or more of an emotional contrast being in the desert versus being where you are?
I think it's split pretty evenly, because with just the fact that we moved here at, I was 65 at the time, or 64 at the time. And, you know, moving away from where I lived all my life, my comfort zone, there was a lot of that letting go and excitement for the new. But so there was a emotional, and then there was excitement, and because of something new. And living in the Arizona is a beautiful, beautiful state, and it has a little bit of everything. But what I realized is that the Washington has more grown up forests, more grown up mountains. They are like, it's a deeper green, lots of different shades and hues of green, and everything that grows is bigger and deeper. And so that's what I've learned here. And it's still, after 2 years, everywhere I go, I'm in awe. I see wildlife everywhere. We see eagles flying, and deer and elk and ducks and geese, and they're all just a little bit different than they were in Arizona. So it's a joy to
Yeah.
rediscover nature, I guess I would say. And then, of course, the water and the ocean and the wildlife there, it's all new and different, and just stops me in my tracks almost every day to take a look and take a breath and enjoy the moment.
Yeah, it is so green. That's what really. My daughter moved to Washington some time years ago now, but I went with her to help her settle in, and I was just astonished at the green, the trees, the whole feeling is so different than
Yeah.
anything I'm accustomed to green and trees. I've lived in the mountains, but there's something really special about that coastal feel,
Yes.
and maybe it's more humid. Yeah, there's a
Yes.
humidity.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad that you're there and you're loving it,
Mm.
and it's been a big transition for you.
Yes.
And I'd love to go back a little further so our guests can get a sense of who you are. Where did you come from? Were you always spiritually inclined? Was your family religious? I mean, what were your earliest sort of thoughts about who you were and your life, and because when I was reading, you talk about that we're all one, and that love is the only thing that truly matters. And so where did that come from? How did it all bubble up in you?
Okay, so that's an evolution. I grew up in a big, loving Christian cowboy family, and we were a pretty wild bunch. We weren't your every Sunday churchgoers, but we had faith. It was there, and it was tucked between, rodeos and ropings and barbecues and milking the cows and all of that kind of thing. My mom had 3 kids by the time she was 18, and I was the oldest. And I quickly learned, how to be the boss, the teacher, and the referee. So spiritualism was there. It was like we were the typical 50s God-fearing family, but on the spectrum, we were over on the lighter side. It wasn't talked about every day. We didn't go to church every Sunday. When I was in my, I'm going to say like 7 to 12, the church van would come pick up my brothers and I up for church, but the whole family didn't go together. My parents required us to go. Well, my mom required us to go. And so we went that way. That was kind of the style of my life and how religion played a role in those younger years. And so for me, there were some things that happened to me around the age of 8. My mom had divorced when I was younger, and at 8, she remarried someone who my stepfather kind of changed the trajectory of our life. And he was an atheist, and he was pretty proud of that role. And so we still went to church in the van, and I was a deep thinker. And at that time, when I became 8, I changed from this outgoing little girl to a very quiet, inward thinker, reflector, observer, and not so much just jumping in, happy, joyful child. And so I questioned a lot of things, and religion was one of them. So I was really curious. I questioned everything. I read about religion, about faith, about everything. And I had this deep need to understand the universe. I wanted to figure it all out, even at that young age. And I honestly thought that I could solve the world's problems. Like I was the chosen one, very special. And I had this direct connect to God. So, and on the outside, though, I was a strong, tough, smart cowgirl. I was a thinker, I was that introspective, always questioning and wondering, but that was on the inside. A lot of people weren't aware of that. And through all of it, I had a messy, chaotic childhood, but I was in my inner world, I was developing my spiritual path, and it didn't always align with the traditional Christian way that I was raised with. But as I grew up, it did too. And by the time I met my husband, when I was 18, things really started to shift. He was this really deep thinker, like a philosopher at heart. And together, we started exploring different spiritual beliefs. And that's when I really started to understand who I was, not just that tender, tough little girl who survived her childhood, but like a woman who was developing her own spiritual compass, building the foundation that made sense for me. And that's where my spiritual beliefs really began to take root. It was not in the chaos, but because of it, I think.
And so who were the biggest influences, do you think, in your early days when you were still at home? Were there, maybe it was your mother, but maybe there were other family members, preachers, teachers, or friends that had left a significant imprint in your heart and mind?
Well, definitely in my heart and mind, but on my spiritual path, I'm going to say my younger years were pretty much left to me. In my life, though, I was very close to my family. I mean, I have a zillion stories and fun and some not so fun. You know, my uncles, because my mom was 15 when she had me. She was the oldest in her family. She had 4 younger brothers who were behind her. So they weren't that much older than me. But they were old enough to have a significant impact on me and to probably make my childhood uh, a lot more fun than it probably should have been. So yeah. So
Yeah.
my grandparents, my uncles, but I didn't like have what we moved a lot. So there really wasn't a lot of I didn't have a lot of time with just any one person. So
Mhm.
as a youngster.
So when you mentioned that at some point when you started to sort of turn in more inward and do a lot of personal, inquiry and studying, the world around you, that you had a sense that there was something within you that wanted to help others or save the world, I think you said. So how did that manifest as you matured, as you got married? When did you marry and what age were you then?
Yeah. So I married when I was 19, just before I had my son at 20. So um and that was with that the man I mentioned before. He was a soulmate for me for sure. And he was together. He and I would just dive in and explore. We go to different New Thought churches at the time, and that was in the late 70s and 80s. And so it was, it was like in people's garages or extra rooms or an old warehouse somewhere. There weren't a lot of them around, but they were fascinating, and I learned a lot from every single one of them. And when I was a child, though, I don't know where my sense of confidence came. It probably came from just the way I was raised about, we were tough, we made it through, we pushed through, put the blinders on, did what needed to be done. And I think that I replaced any fears and insecurity I had with that. Like, I had all this support around me in that way, but there was a lot of things also going on at home with this stepfather that I chose not to deal with, or I didn't know how to deal with it, and I wasn't going to talk to anyone about it, and I didn't. So, when I look back at it now, I think that it was probably some kind of survival technique, that I developed this sense of calm, this sense of strength, and I can get through anything. I also developed that conduit to God, to that, and I wasn't sure exactly what God was, but to me, God was my dear friend, that friend that maybe when I moved from one place to the other was always there with me, even if my friends weren't anymore. So I felt like I had a special relationship always. And
Mhm.
so that really helped me to make it through anything and to not feel alone and to feel confident I could do anything.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So that special relationship, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that a lot of people that don't follow the traditional Christian or religious path, but have their own personal relationship with God or the divine or the universe, whatever you call it. Um, it seems like that's where humanity seems to be heading. I know that there's churches and people
Right.
still believe their particular religions, but I'm intrigued as to how that was it through being alone, or prayer time, or meditation, or how did you nurture that connection? Because it sounds like, and I know you, and I know you to be very intuitive.
Mhm.
And so tell us a little bit about your particular way you feel close or connected or inspired or guided by your higher power.
Okay, so when I was young, I was alone a lot, especially after age 8, and that was my choice. Um, I reflected a lot. I spoke with God a lot, and I felt like God guided me. And I guess I know that God guided me. God kept me safe, and I felt this, I call it, I call the God spirit Gus, for God
Gus.
universe spirit. Yes. And
Wait. Say that again. God.
universe spirit.
Okay,
Yes.
Gus. Got
Yes.
it.
And so I had this relationship with Gus. I also, this is not so uncommon, but when I was young, I had many dreams of saving others. And in my dreams, I could fly. And I believed I could fly. And now I know that more than likely this was a survival, strategy. But at the time, I believed it. I truly believed that if I needed to, I could fly. I had no doubt. And in my dreams, I did. I saved people. I, I, you name it, I was like the savior, and that helped me to get through too. And when I did find out, when I was probably about 14, I realized, okay, I don't think I can really fly. But it impacted me greatly. I was really disappointed and sad. It was like worse than finding out about Santa Claus. So, but it also helped me, because I think I had a maturity beyond my years, and probably because I had started inner work and I didn't realize it, like because I had these talks with God. And that when I was younger, they were talks. They were just talks and they were prayers, because that's what I knew to do at times. And I will just tell you this one story it's kind of interesting about me. It was a turning point in my life. I was about 11 or 12, and my mother had arranged for my brothers and I to be baptized because we hadn't been baptized yet. And my mom, who I believe now to be probably a type 1 on the Enneagram, so she was a bit controlling. She was actually very controlling at that time in her life. And I, being the older daughter, and she wanted to protect me from things, from things in life. And so she pretty much dictated my life. And I was afraid of her. I was afraid to talk back or tell her my truth. And but getting baptized really did not sit well with me, because it didn't feel right to me. It felt like, how can I, when I have questions, how can I commit to this, following one religion when I don't know? I have questions and nobody can answer them. I don't feel right by moving forth yet. This doesn't work for me. And so I finally got the courage to face her. And she was ironing. I remember it. She was ironing. She was a shirt. And I came in and I said, "Mom, I need to talk to you." And that was unusual. And so she put the iron, she set it up right and said, "About what?" And I said, "I don't want to get baptized." And I was so scared. I was really scared because I did not know what was going to happen. And she turned and looked at me with a very serious and kind of angry face that said, "Why?" And I'm like, and I told her just what I just said. I don't feel right about it. I have questions, and I feel like I'll be lying if I say that I'm going to do this. And she said, okay, let me think about it. And she went about her ironing. And I was absolutely floored because that was the first time I got my voice. I used my voice and I didn't get reprimanded for it. She listened to me, and I realized that was the first time I realized that I might be able to talk to my mom. I might be able to say what I was thinking and feeling to my mother.
Mm.
And that was a big turning point for me. And I didn't get baptized, and it was okay.
Wow,
So,
that's
yeah.
really revealing. You and I, you talked about the Enneagram and your mother possibly being a 1, a 0.1, and you and I both sit at 0.4.
Yes.
And I know that part of being the individualist, the Enneagram artist, that we have a strong sense of integrity. Like it's important for us to be in alignment.
Yes.
So, doing something that doesn't feel right, that is out of alignment with who we sense ourselves to be is hard. It's difficult. And so that was a big point for you to speak your word, to speak up, to be seen by your mother, in that she didn't, strong arm you or, try and control you, but she gave you the space to be you. That must have been a defining moment.
It was. Absolutely. I always call it one of the turning points in my life, for sure. Yes.
Yeah. So, I know that you are an educator. So I'm getting a sense that in this timeline, we're speeding up a bit beyond the ironing board experience, but to when you got married and when you started exploring your own spirituality with your husband, that you were sort of on that path together and did a lot of growth work, self-work, exploration. How did your life evolve from there as far as having kids, a career?
Well, life really didn't slow down too much after childhood. It might have even ramped up. So I married my soulmate, and it was beautiful in many different ways, and not so much in other ways. And I guess life took us in other directions. And after many years, we got a divorce. And I was a single parent. I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. So I had to quickly finish school, which I had been going for years. I didn't mention that my family was not educated. They didn't truly see the value of it back then. And so I don't believe any of my extended family had even received a high school graduation. And so I was determined that I would move past that. And I did. It took me some time, but I did end up, I got my high school graduation right away, but I ended up getting, going to college and getting, and I kept going throughout my life and got a few master's degrees and became a teacher, became a principal and an educational leader. And those were big accomplishments for me. And I, took care of my kids, and they turned out to be pretty good human beings. I love them. They're amazing.
They are amazing human beings. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back to talk to Diana about what she's doing now, what her purpose is, and how she's supporting others. We'll see you in a minute.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
We're back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been fascinating hearing your story. Not that I haven't heard parts of it before, but it's giving me real sense of who you are and sort of the development of this, your personality in regards to the Enneagram. Maybe you could share a little bit about what you do now with Wild Hearts, and maybe a little bit about how the Enneagram, understanding your type and the study you've done on the Enneagram, how that impacts what you're doing now.
Yes. So I have to start at a big fall I had, a big dip in the road for me. And that was, after the kids had left, and I had, I was starting to experience life as not motherhood not being my total focus, or I guess my major focus. And I went through this time of loss, actually, but shortly after. And I lost, some beloved members of my family. I guess over a 7-span year. Yeah, I mean, a 7-year span of my life, I had one loss after another, and each one just seemed a little bit more personal than the last one. I lost some of my uncles, a relationship, my soulmate, beautiful inside and out, yet much younger sister to an overdose. My mom, when my brothers went to prison on drug-related charges, and I was kind of muddling through it all. I think that all of that, the grief, the loss, and the feeling that some of the stuff that was happening. This is where I came from. You know, I am not worthy. I'm from this family who's falling apart, and I'm part of it. And I think that that was kind of deep down, and it was something that really needed to be looked at. And I, with all my self-development and my relationship with Gus, even though I had all of that going on, I was spiraling. I was spiraling out of control, and I got really lost in the mess for a while. And I wasn't a so well, I say that you know, I was muddling through all the mud, blood, and beer, like old cowboy song. But I really wasn't a drinker. But I numbed this pain that was bubbling up, and this discomfort and sadness that, even though I usually kind of like this sadness and the feelings, this was just too much for me. And I numbed it by going to the casinos and gambling. And it was really strange for me because I knew better. I was self-aware. I had this direct conduit to Gus, but I was spiraling and I knew it. And I could even talk about it. I went to counseling, I went for grief, I went for gambling. I was praying all the time, and I was still digging myself in, going further and further down. I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't know what to do. And I was like really disappointed in myself. And there were days when I just couldn't even look past that grief. And I kept having lesson after lesson after lesson, but not really learning. And so something happened. Somebody recommended that I go to an Enneagram workshop, which I did. And it was another turning point. I saw this older woman fall down on her knees sobbing for something that happened when she was a child. And I also saw the leader of the Enneagram group who had worked with this woman, knew her type, and used it to guide her, to help this woman to connect the dots and to come through this and come out of it like lighter and liberated from this light bulb that just went off and this uncovering. And I was so touched, like deeply touched by that. I could not get it out of my head, even though I didn't grasp on and jump at the Enneagram right away. Over the next year, I read some books. I went to this Enneagram coach, and I started learning about myself through the Enneagram, which was a way different perspective than I had ever looked at myself. So it was a long process for me. And but I came out on the other side, and I feel like I'm less than perfect, and I'm absolutely okay with that. I'm grounded, I'm grateful, and I'm joyful. And my life is still full of stories, and stories that are still, messy and beautiful, and everything in between. Like, I'm curious, I'm learning, I'm evolving. I'm not perfect, but I have a certain confidence and grounding because I know myself at this level that is it's deep, and it's accepting and non-judgmental and pure. And I'm okay. I'm good. I'm good. And I can laugh at myself. And I find that you and we laugh at ourselves as type 4s all the time. And we're okay. We've accepted this. I think is the story, the truth in loving yourself, is knowing yourself at that down and dirty, amazing, pure level, and knowing that it's okay who you are. Pretty
Yeah.
beautiful.
That's so beautiful to hear. And I can see that in that journey, in that painful, dark, and joyful and light journey that you took over the course of your lifetime, that you've been through so much in your life. And there's a lot that obviously our viewers don't know, some of the things that you've been through, but we can feel it through you telling us your story. And for you to be able to do the work, to find acceptance and understanding and learn to love yourself, even though, as you said, you're not perfect and you're not always, on that leading edge of your own becoming, in a positive way. When we can have that depth of knowledge, that self-awareness, and then channel what we do know to support others, there's something that happens in people can trust you, people see you, people relate, because you're able to articulate that journey, that growth, that self-discovery in a way that must give your clients a deep sense that you're someone that knows and can walk alongside them through their own journey of discovery. And so share a little bit about the work that you've been doing with women, and what you're doing now to support people, because I think, as you've sort of underscored several times, this was a transitional period. You are, as you look back over your life, you're able to see those points of transition. And you and I are close to the same age, and so we've been through many decades of our lives, and we've seen lots of new chapters, transitions, changes. And I think, working with women that are over 50, that are struggling to come to terms with their changes, their life changes, their, relationship changes. Share a little bit about your journey with others through this.
Well, I'm going to say about 10 years ago, maybe not quite, but about 10 years ago, I really wanted to share what I learned and what I was going through and what I've gone through with others. So I started a small group and with a couple of friends, and we called the group Wild Hearts, and Wild, WILDD, is an acronym, which means wildly inspired by life's divine dance. And that says it all to me. It is a divine. It comes from the divine, but there's no one way. It can be super peaceful and lovely for a long time, and then crazy, or crazy for a lot, and then divine, peaceful and wonderful. But all of it is an amazing adventure, all of it. And it's, so anyway, we put this group together, and we started meeting at libraries and coffee shops and my living room. And then it expanded to online, and we had a bigger audience, a bigger group. And I'm a storyteller, I found, and I do love to write. So I blog. I've written a lot about my life and my childhood in my blogs, and in recent years more about how the Enneagram has influenced my growth. And a lot of people have reached out and wanted to know more. And so I expanded, like you said, Allie. I got certified, and now I am a coach. And Allie and I have some things in the work that we're really excited about in the future, which hopefully you will see before too long. And I love this Wild Hearts group, because it's like that safe place, like Allie said, where some of us there's a lot of us who we've been through it. We've learned from it, and we came out on the other side with open hearts, and we strive, no matter what life throws at us, to keep our hearts open. And that's what Wild Hearts is, that just helping each other to keep our hearts open as we move through it, and we go through it by having this safe, lovely group of people who wish to support and help. And also the Enneagram. The Enneagram too is that tool to help all of us learn who we are at the deepest level. And you can take it to whatever level you want, wherever you're comfortable, because that is one thing that I think that Allie and I have learned, is that not everyone is a type 4 and has to go to the deepest, darkest places to heal up. But it's whatever you need, what your particular needs are. And that's what's, I guess, beautiful about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is a beautiful journey. Like you, I've been on a journey of self-discovery and walking a spiritual path for all of my adult life. And I was introduced to the Enneagram several years ago, but never really dove too deeply into it until a couple of years ago when I found it through my therapist had mentioned it and works with it. And for me, I think one of the greatest gifts that on the path of self-discovery and using the Enneagram as a tool to really understand ourselves and see ourselves how we are really two. There's our personality, that part of us that we think we are, that part of us that got formed as young ones, and yet there's that essential part of us, that spiritual part of us, our soul, if you will, that hasn't experienced the same life as that ego personality. Because you know, there's this part of us that, like you mentioned, the 4s can be deeply feeling, and these are my words, quite dramatic sometimes, and love to go deep, and are seeking to find belonging with others and connection and authentic connection like that, and also have an eye for beauty and aesthetics and things to feel right. And then there's that part of us, that essence part of us that's already there.
Yes.
And so it's the Enneagram journey for me, and I know for the people you're working with, it's an understanding of these two aspects of our being, our ego and our essence, and being able to blend those so that we live that deep spiritual essential self more on the outside than just kind of tucked down in the inside, and our personality with all of its foibles and preferences and opinions and all of that leading the show. And we had talked a little bit about how learning our type helped us to, rather than just react maybe from a fearful part of our personality or a sad part of our personality, begin to see that we can actually respond in a more authentic, graceful way versus react. So I'd love to just talk about that a little bit. So when you discovered your Enneagram type, when you started really, deepening on your spiritual path, and you could see, as you reflected back in your life, how you're in an unhealthy time or an unhealthy space, how you maybe had that reaction that didn't get the results that you were hoping for, versus now that you can see it, you're able to respond with more authentic power. So what was your reaction when you would get triggered? Was there a very specific kind of to do with your type 4 reaction that you would meet with that would arise when you were challenged in some way?
Well, I think for me, a lot of times it was to pull back, to go inward, and not necessarily talk to people or about it. And I I think I learned a long time ago the pause that you're talking about, that pausing between reacting, between action and what you do. But I think especially in that unhealthy time that you mentioned for me was that, after a couple of things, I think I threw in the towel and just dove in, and it just kept coming, and I kept trying to go through it, but it was too much. So instead of really seeking or knowing what to do, I just went down there and played in all that mud and just threw my hands up. I think that that's what happened with me. But what I also learned from it is that, well, and it's been from the Enneagram, it's just simply because I know myself better. So I can feel that. So I do okay, I see that the signs, the clues, they're popping up, and I'm like, I'll take care of myself. I'll, get away or take some time off or take a walk out in nature, which is my happy meditative place, where I meet up with Gus. And or even if I just go in and sit with the dogs and stare out at the beautiful water or something like that, I take time for myself, to calm myself, to remind myself, to possibly go back and say, okay, what's triggering this? What's going on? And how do I get back in my driver's seat? And instead of letting this trigger or whatever it is drive my life, I'm making a choice that I'm going to be the driver of my life. And I can catch that early on now.
Yeah. Yeah, I can really relate to that. I know for me, when I'm in an unhealthy place, or or I'm exhausted, or that I can slip into that personality, which can take things really personally, and be offended. And I also feel that when I'm in that place, there's also this sense that there's something missing.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some idealized life or experience. And if I only had that, then everything would be better. I'd feel more centered in myself. I'd have a closer relationship with God. My friendships would be buzzing along in a happy, joyful way. My family, we'd be getting along. And so I've noticed that I do have this idealized idea of what my life should feel like and look like. And I would react to that, things not being the way I think they should be, by, like you said, withdrawing. I would become melancholy, and I can still feel that tug if things aren't going the way I want them, or if I'm, I have a great imagination, and if I have an idea of what, I want to happen, and I've got a big vision that I'm working on, but it doesn't come, at the time I think it should, or how it should in my ego's sense, then I can have this sense of disappointment and discontent. And I have battled with that my entire life. So discovering the Enneagram for me, there was this like, oh, you mean that's not really me? That's the programming. I don't want to discount it, that there isn't a longing for something more, or I do miss particular things, but I don't have to let it, like you said, run my life. It's like, oh, there that thing is, there's that discontent. But if I become still, centered, like you said, go out in nature, then I can find that true soulful essence that knows that there's nothing missing, that everything's coming together just as it needs to be. There's divine right timing occurring. But when I'm in the grips of the ego, it's like none of that seems obvious. And so the reaction for me is sadness and withdrawal.
Yeah. And I think too that something for me is that I see that emotional intensity as a little different now. My perception's changed, and that I can use it as well. I use it. It's part of my process now. I use it for energy or for fuel to become, to guide me and to drive me to that self-reflection. Like, why am I feeling misunderstood? You know, what's really going on here? And so I can take it and turn it more inward instead of outward, or, you know, like putting it off on other people, like they did this or they did that. And I'm like, oh, why am I feeling this way? And that changes everything, doing it, you know, being able to look at it from that viewpoint.
So I'd love to, people can get a hold of you from your website, right? wildhearts.com
Yes.
with 2 Ds. And you work with people in discovering their Enneagram type. And then what? What happens once you work with a client, you guide them to find their type, because we select our own type. You don't
Right.
take a test and are told what type you are. So what happens next when someone's
Once they know their type, well, I guess the next step would be to dive deep into that type, the characteristics of that type, so that they can discover and share how it shows up in their life, how they see it in their personality or in their actions or their feelings. And then they can decide, you know, it's going to be up to them where we go from there, you know, because they know what they want to work on. And so some people are like, okay, I have a relationship and I'm struggling with it, or I have this situation with work, or I want to repair this relationship with my child. It could be like, I am very insecure with with giving presentations or something in my life, and I really want to get over it. I know better, but I can't seem to get through it.
Beautiful. Well, I always end my podcast with this question. We've all heard the song, "What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love." And just in a couple of words, Diana, what do you think here at the Growing Edge, our evolutionary edge right now, what does the world need?
My motto, my Wild Hearts motto is love is all there is. And so I go with that. And love is all encompassing. Love is compassion for oneself and for others.
Beautiful. Thank you, Diana. It has been a gift to have this conversation with you and to be working with you. And I love that people can find you and work with you the way we've worked together. That feels like you're spreading the love through what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your questions. And I just have to tell you, as a fellow 4, I feel seen and heard.
Good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week. And my guest will be Michelle Medrano. Peace and blessings. Lots of love.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge.